Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're taking on something really significant. We're heading into the borderlands.
Yeah, but not just the physical place, right? More the cultural, the historical space.
Exactly, and the linguistic space, that constant push and pull.
And our main source here is Gloria Anzaldua's essay, How to Tame the Wild Tongue.
Hmm.
It's incredibly powerful, foundational, really.
It is, and this isn't just about, words and grammar rules.
Not at all. It feels more like a declaration
Hmm.
about identity, about fighting back against cultural conflict.
Right. So our mission today really is to unpack Chicano Spanish, and Zaldúa forces us to look at it differently.
Yeah, not as like broken English or bad Spanish.
Or just a mix. She wants us to see it as legitimate, as a real border tongue. What does she call it? Lenguaje de la frontera.
hmm And she traces this fight against two huge pressures.
On one side, you've got the pressure to assimilate, to become Anglo.
And on the other, the purists, people trying to enforce proper Spanish, the academic kind.
It's high stakes, as you said, because for Anzaldúa, this fight over language, it's about more than just words.
Oh, absolutely. It's tied directly to personal legitimacy, cultural legitimacy, even political.
Because if someone tells you your language, the language of your home, your heart, if they say that's wrong or illegal,
Then they're basically saying you are illegitimate. Your existence is profound.
and she pulls us in right away. That opening scene, it's so
The
vivid.
dentist's office, yeah.
It's intimate, but also kind of brutal, isn't it? It sets up the whole theme. Control.
The dentist is cleaning her roots, and he just says it right. We're going to have to control your tongue.
Just like that. No malice, maybe, but all the authority is there.
And it's chilling. Because it's medical, it sounds neutral, but it's really about social control, isn't it?
He keeps saying he's never seen a tongue so strong, so stubborn.
And he's clearly not just talking about the muscle.
No, he's talking about her voice, her resistance. He actually asks, how do you tame a wild tongue, bridle and saddle it?
Wow, that phrasing, bridle and saddle. Like an animal.
It's heavy foreshadowing. The tongue voice, identity seen as wild, needing discipline from outside.
Just like the wider culture often demands of languages that aren't the dominant one.
And that physical control in the dentist's chair, it shifts pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, from the body to the institution, the school, where the policing becomes, well, systematic trauma.
Let's get into that schoolhouse trauma, because this is where policy hits kids directly. And Zaldúa's memories are sharp.
Painfully sharp. She talks about getting caught speaking Spanish during recess.
Just speaking Spanish.
Yeah. And the punishment. 3 licks on the knuckles.
With a ruler.
A sharp ruler, she specifies. It's the detail that makes it so visceral.
And it wasn't just the physical pain, was it? It was the message that came with it.
Exactly. The teacher, the authority figure, lays it out. If you want to be American, speak American. If you don't like it, go back to Mexico where you belong.
Wow. That's incredibly blunt. It's not just a school rule.
No, it's the whole assimilation package, tied up with national loyalty. Speak this way or you don't belong here.
You can't be both. American and Spanish speaking. They're presented as mutually exclusive.
And this wasn't just one teacher, one incident. It was systemic. She says all Chicano students had to take 2 speech classes.
Speech classes? Why?
The stated goal, to get rid of our accents. Explicitly.
So, an official institutional effort to erase their way of speaking.
Funded and everything.
Yeah.
Dedicated to linguistic cleansing, essentially.
The hostility is just undeniable. And what I find fascinating is how Anzaldúa doesn't just leave it as a bad memory. She connects it to something much bigger.
Yeah, she elevates it. This isn't just discipline. It's an attack on expression itself.
And she actually frames it as a violation of First Amendment rights. That's
Yeah.
a bold move.
It is. But her logic is powerful. Language isn't just communication. It's how we build our identity. So attacking my language is attacking my right to be who I am.
It's censoring the self.
Exactly. And she has this line in Spanish that just hits hard.
Which one?
El Anglo con cara de inocente. Nos arrancó la lengua.
The Anglo with the innocent face.
Ripped out our tongue.
That phrase, innocent face. That's the chilling part.
Right. It's not overt hate, necessarily. It's the quiet, smiling violence of assimilation. People thinking they're helping.
Helping you succeed by erasing your roots, ripping out the tongue while claiming to clean the roots, like the dentist.
And this external policing, this ripping out, Anzaldúa argues it gets internalized.
Which leads to the next big struggle she talks about.
Right.
Overcoming silence.
Yeah.
especially for women. #tag to overcoming the tradition of silence in gendered language.
Yeah, so we move from the outside pressure, the institutions, to the inside.
Right.
How control becomes self-control. And it gets very gendered.
How so?
She uses that Mexican saying, en boca cerrada no entre moscas.
Flies don't enter a closed mouth.
Right. It sets up this idea that speaking, for women especially, is dangerous. It invites trouble, contamination. Silence is safety.
So women's voices are seen as inherently problematic, something to be managed.
Pretty much. And the language used within the community reinforces it. She lists these words she heard constantly as a child.
Words used against girls or women who spoke up.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Words that associated talking back, or even just talking a lot, with being malcriada, badly raised.
And malcriada carries a lot of weight, doesn't it? It's not just naughty.
No, it's deeper. It implies a failure in your upbringing. Your character as a female. And look at the words. Habra partrai,
Talking back.
repeller,
Objecting, questioning authority.
especially male authority. Hoshiakona,
Big mouth, basically. Disruptive mouth.
rebellona, argumentative, rebellious, and cosmosa.
Gossipy. And she points at
She never heard these words used for men. Men talk, women gossip, men assert, women rebel.
the language itself polices gender roles. It dictates who gets to speak and how.
Which leads her to this big realization about language itself being fundamentally a male discourse.
Ah, yes, the Nosotros moment. Tell us about that.
It was a shock for her. She heard two women, one Puerto Rican, one Cuban, refer to themselves using the feminine plural nosotros.
And that was unusual for her.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because she says Chicanas are taught and usually use the masculine plural nosotros, even if the group is all women.
So the default grammatical form erases the feminine.
That's her argument. The structure itself implies the female plural is secondary, maybe even unnecessary. It linguistically negates their specific female being.
Wow. Realizing that must have been something. It shows the pressure isn't just external,
Yeah.
not just from Anglos.
Exactly. It comes from inside the community, too. Pressure for linguistic purity.
What did she call it? The reglas de academia.
Yeah. Even our own people would hold us back with their bag of reglas de academia, the rules of the academy.
So a desire for proper Spanish, standard Spanish.
Right. Often the kind taught far away, in formal settings, completely disconnected from how people actually live and speak on the border.
So it's a double bind. Anglos punish you for speaking Spanish at all, and then some Spanish speakers criticize you for not speaking the right kind of Spanish.
You can't win. Your tongue is always wild to someone.
Which sets up the need to defend and define this border language on its own terms.
Right. And that section title, Oye como ladra.
Listen how it barks.
It captures that hostility perfectly. How Chicano Spanish is viewed from the outside. Like it's just noise, not language.
And she talks about being called a pucho. That term is loaded.
Deeply loaded. It means an anglicized Mexican. Someone seen as having betrayed their roots, adopted white culture.
A cultural traitor, accused of ruining the Spanish language.
So you're rejected by Anglo culture for being Mexican, and then rejected by some Mexicans or Latinos for not being Mexican enough, or for speaking bad Spanish.
Culturally homeless.
That's the feeling. Anzaldua says Chicano Spanish is often seen as a mutilation of Spanish. Even by Latinos who speak standard Mexican Spanish,
Yeah,
it's dismissed as uneducated, broken.
but she pushes back hard against that.
Fiercely. She defines it not as broken, but as a border tongue developed naturally, a living language, un nuevo lenguaje.
One that grows through invention, through adoption.
Invención or adopción, yeah.
Yeah.
And crucially, lenguaje que corresponde un modo de vivir.
A language that corresponds to a way of life.
Exactly. It's not just style, it's a tool forged by the reality of living between cultures, between languages. When Spanish isn't dominant, but English is everywhere, yet you're not fully part of that English world. You have to create a language for that specific reality.
She calls it a patois, a forked tongue, a mix, but a functional, necessary one.
And to show just how complex her own reality is, she lists them out. The languages she lives in.
An incredible list. How many? 8.
8 distinct languages and dialects she calls her home tongues.
Let's hear them.
Okay, standard English, then working class and slang English, standard Spanish, standard Mexican Spanish,
Oh, okay. 4 already.
then North Mexican Spanish dialect, Chicano Spanish, and she notes regional versions, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Tex-Mex, and finally, Pachuco or Calo.
8. That's a lot for one person to navigate.
It is, and she explains why. She has to code switch constantly depending on who she's talking to.
Different dialects for different family members or different groups?
Yes, she uses the North Mexican dialect with older relatives, recent immigrants, with Chicanas from other states, maybe a mix, but even then, regional differences in Chicano Spanish can make it tricky.
So just saying someone is a Spanish speaker is almost meaningless in that
It
context.
totally misses the complexity. It's this constant shifting, this linguistic juggling.
It really underscores why something like Tex-Mex isn't just slang, but essential.
Absolutely. Tex-Mex embodies the border. It communicates things that are, like she says, neither Español ni Inglés, but both.
It refuses to choose sides because the speaker lives in a space that is both sides.
And it's incredibly dynamic. Switching languages mid-sentence, even mid-word, it's not random mixing. It's building meaning in a way that reflects that dual reality. It offers a kind of clarity neither standard language can provide on its own.
Okay, so Anzaldua argues it's a real language, born of necessity, but she also digs into its history, right? To show it's not just mistakes.
Yes, this is crucial for legitimizing it. She shows how Chicano Spanish evolved naturally over 250 years of separation and specific influences. There are symptomatic differences.
Like pronunciation shifts.
She mentions vowels collapsing, like standard maize becoming maize, or cojite becoming cute, dropping consonants sometimes, like the deed in lotto becoming lao. These aren't random errors, they're consistent patterns.
Then the archaism part, that's fascinating, like finding linguistic fossils.
Kind of. Words or structures that disappeared from standard Spanish centuries ago but survived in isolated border communities. South Texas, for instance.
So Chicano Spanish is like a time capsule in some ways.
Exactly. She gives examples. Semos instead of somos for we are. Touche for I brought instead of try. Haiga for there isare, which is ancient. Encina for thus. Naden for no one.
These aren't wrong then, they're just older.
Precisely. They carry history that standardized Spanish shed. She even talks about sounds.
Likes the it sound.
Yeah, the heart eats sound and words like halar to pull. That sound existed in Spanish but was lost in the standard language back in the 16th century. But it survived in some dialects, including Chicano Spanish.
So when a purist corrects a Chicano speaker on that, the Chicano speaker might actually be using an older, more historically rooted form.
Isn't that incredible? It flips the script entirely. The error is actually a linguistic artifact.
And she links this back to where the colonizers came from.
Right. Extremadura, Andalusia. Cortes himself was from Extremadura. She points out the Andalusian influence, like pronouncing il as high. That history shaped the border language. It didn't just pop up randomly.
It has roots, deep roots. Okay, so that covers the Spanish heritage and divergence. What about the English influence? The Anglicisms. People often point to those as proof it's not real Spanish.
Sure. And Anzaldua acknowledges them, but frames them as adaptation, not contamination. It's another layer of history.
How do they work?
English words get pulled in, but they're often reshaped to fit Spanish grammar, like adding Spanish verb endings. Cookyar for to cook, parkyar for to park.
So English words, but Spanish rules.
Exactly. Or translating concepts literally, like máquina de lavar for washing machine instead of the standard Spanish lavadora. It shows English pressure, yes, but also the creativity of Chicano Spanish absorbing and adapting.
And then there's Pachuco, Calo. That seems like a special case.
It really is. She calls it a tongue of rebellion, a secret language.
Secret how?
Developed deliberately to be misunderstood by outsiders, adults, teachers, police. Associated with the Zoot Suiters back in the 40s and 50s, it was resistance through language.
Pure slang, basically. A mix of English and Spanish, but coded.
Yeah, a defensive code. She gives examples, though she says she's lost most of it. Ruca for girl or woman.
Okay.
Vato for guy or dude. Pigeonar meaning too petty or act petty. Kigacho for how nerdy or uncool.
It's another layer of identity, specifically about defiance and creating a private space.
Absolutely. Away from the judgment of both standard Spanish and standard English speakers. #tag V, linguistic terrorism, and the fight for legitimacy.
All this judgment, this policing from all sides.
Yeah.
It brings us back to that really powerful term she uses, linguistic terrorism.
It's a heavy term, and meant to be. It describes the impact of constant criticism.
It's not just criticism, though, is it? It's the effect it has.
Right. It's systematic. It leads Chicanas, she says, to internalize the idea that their way of speaking is wrong, an aberration, a bastard language.
And that leads to
Shame, deep shame,
picking it up.
and a low self-esteem. If your language is constantly attacked, your sense of self-worth erodes. Your very existence feels questionable.
And this becomes internalized, like self-censorship.
She talks about Chicanas feeling uncomfortable speaking Spanish, even with other Latinos, other family members. Always afraid of getting it wrong. even though it's their native tongue.
That must be exhausting, always monitoring yourself, editing your own voice.
It's incredibly damaging. It deprives them of the full power and richness of their own language, that constant self-monitoring. It's cage.
And institutions seem to reinforce this. She brings up the example of language classes in schools.
Yeah, the absurdity, as she sees it. Spanish speakers are the largest minority in the U.S., yet schools often push them towards French
Why French?
because it's seen as more cultured, more academically respectable.
So the language spoken by millions in the U.S. is implicitly dismissed as less worthy of study than French.
That's the implication she draws. It reveals a hierarchy of cultural value, whose culture, whose language gets validated, and whose gets ignored or corrected.
But Anzaldua completely rejects that hierarchy.
Absolutely. She makes I will have my voice, Indian, Spanish, white. I will have my serpent's tongue, my woman's voice, my sexual voice, my poet's voice.
The serpent's tongue. Let's
Yeah.
unpack that. The serpent is usually a negative symbol in Western culture, right? Temptation, danger, the feminine link to sin.
Exactly. Eve and the serpent. But Anzaldua flips it. She reclaims the serpent. That wild tongue, the one they try to control, now becomes a symbol of power.
Power and multifaceted identity. Indigenous wisdom mixed with everything else.
It's defiance turned into beauty, a full embrace of the self they tried to shame. Hashtag tag 6, vistas, corridos, and the soul of the new mestiza.
So identity isn't just about grammar and vocabulary. Anzaldua makes that clear. It's also deeply embedded in culture and shared experiences.
Definitely. She talks about other cultural forms, music especially, how crucial it is for chronicling the border experience.
The corridos, what are those exactly?
Narrative folk songs. Ballads, really, about love, death, struggle, history. She calls them the ever-present chroniclers of the borderlands.
So like oral history set to music?
Pretty much. And often celebrating resistance. Mexican heroes standing up to Anglo oppressors. She mentions Pancho Villa's song La Cucaracha as a famous example.
So the same refusal to be silenced we saw with language. It echoes in the music.
Yes, the corridos keep the stories alive, the history of struggle and resilience, passed down through the community, not through official channels. It's another form of that lengua de la frontera.
And the sound itself is unique, right? Tex-Mex, norteño music.
Very distinct. She mentions the key instruments, the accordion, the bajo sexto.
Which is a 12-string bass guitar.
Right. And what's interesting is the history there. Those instruments often came from German and Czech immigrants in Central Texas.
Another example of that borderland synergy. Cultures mixing, creating something new.
Exactly. Not just conflict, but creation too. The music itself embodies that mix.
And identity isn't just auditory, it's sensory. She grounds it in smells, tastes.
Oh yeah, the sensory details are powerful. Home isn't just a place. It's wood smoke against a blue sky. The smell of cow manure, she says. And the food.
The food descriptions really anchor it. Tortillas steaming, chile colorado, fajitas sizzling.
The thought of tamales steaming makes her mouth water. These aren't just descriptions, they're proof of belonging. Something visceral deep inside that can't be argued away or policed.
But living in that rich, complex space, it means straddling the border. And that creates conflict.
A deep psychological conflict. She calls it a state of voluntary yet forced alienation.
How does she explain that? The different layers of identity.
Well, Chicanos distinguish themselves from Mexicanos del otro lado from Mexico, but also from Mexicanos de este lado, those in the U.S. who might be seen as less assimilated, perhaps. They say, nosotros los mexicanos, we Mexicans, but no, they don't quite fit neatly into any national or purely racial box.
Caught between cultures, neither fully accepting them.
Right. Anglo culture clashing with Mexican values. She talks about this creating a kind of dual identity, a struggle to reconcile the different parts.
And it leads to this feeling of not belonging anywhere.
Yeah, a painful feeling. She puts it starkly. Feeling like the different parts cancel each other out and we are zero, nothing, no one.
That feeling of being zero, that's the psychological impact of that linguistic terrorism, that cultural policing, taken to its extreme, erasure of the self.
But then she has that line, pero hasta cuando no lo soy, lo soy.
But even when I am not, I am. A paradox.
Exactly. And out of that paradox, that conflict, comes what she calls the new mestiza consciousness.
The mestiza, what does that mean in this context?
It's the identity born from the mix. The lucha, the struggle, a synergy of two cultures, she says. She points out that Chicanos often have significant indigenous ancestry, maybe 70–80%. The mestiza consciousness is realizing and embracing all those parts, the indigenous, the Spanish, the white, the conflict itself.
So the struggle isn't something to overcome and leave behind, but something to integrate.
Yes, it becomes a source of a unique strength, a specific kind of awareness. It transforms that zero into a space of potential.
And she ends on a note of resilience.
Unbreakable resilience. She acknowledges the pressure, the hammer blow of the dominant culture, the centuries of white laws and commerce. But, she says, they haven't broken the mestizo.
Stubborn, persevering.
Yes, by embracing the contradictions, the conflicts within, they become, in her words, impenetrable. They endure. They will remain. Ultra. You know, reflecting on this deep dive, what really stands out is how Anzaldua forces that shift in perspective. Chicano Spanish isn't just some casual mix.
No, it's presented as this necessary tool, crafted for survival, for expressing realities that don't fit neatly into standard English or standard Spanish.
The realities of that border space.
Yeah.
Things that only that specific language, that lengua de la frontera, can truly capture.
And I think the big takeaway for you listening has to be that connection. The fight over language is always a fight over legitimacy, personal legitimacy, cultural legitimacy.
Absolutely. When someone attacks your language, whether it's the one your family speaks, or maybe even the jargon of your profession, or just how you express your deepest self, they're implicitly attacking you. They're saying you're somehow less valid.
And rejecting that shame, refusing to feel illegitimate for how you communicate, that's where change starts. Real change.
So maybe here's something to think about as we wrap up. Anzaldua argues language shapes reality. Her wild tongue refused control, and in doing so, asserted a new reality.
So the question for you is, what language do you use to define yourself? Maybe in your job, your family, your identity. Is there a part of your language, your way of speaking or writing, that someone, somewhere, deems illegitimate or unprofessional or just wrong?
And what would happen if you decided to reclaim that voice? To stop apologizing for it? How might that change your world, your reality?
Something definitely worth considering. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.